Good morning, everybody. It's Miss Bailey, and today is Tuesday. It's April the 21st, and I am going to be doing a lesson right now on adding and subtracting fractions. And so today, we're only going to do fractions with like denominators, which means that the denominator, or the number in the bottom of the fraction, is the same. Okay, so let's go over fractions, just kind of review fractions. We know a fraction represents a part of something. It's not the whole thing. So when we need to represent a part of something, like a half or 1/3, we use fractions or decimals. So a fraction is just a part of something, and the denominator, the bottom number, tells us how many parts that thing is divided into. We also know that a fraction is a division statement. So we have a numerator, the top, divided by a denominator, or the bottom. So it can also represent a division statement. All right, so here are some rules before we do some examples. We'll do some examples together. Then I'll also assign a worksheet and some IXL practice. Okay, so this should be pretty easy though, adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators, because we don't have to change the fractions into equivalent fractions. All right, so some of this might not make total sense right now. It'll make more sense when we get into adding fractions with unlike denominators. All right, so adding and subtracting fractions, before we can add or subtract them, we must have a like denominator. That means the bottom number is the same. So if we don't have like denominators, we're going to have to find equivalent fractions and force them to have like denominators. Okay, rule number 2 is we never add or subtract. That's really distracting. Okay, we never add or subtract the denominator or the bottom. We only add or subtract the numerator or the top. So we never add or subtract the denominator, the bottom number. We only add or subtract the numerator or the top. He's going to keep doing it. Okay. The denominator or the bottom always stays the same. Okay, so the denominator, the bottom, always stays the same. We don't add it, we don't subtract it. Okay, now we're going to try to do some examples. And let's see. All right, here's my paper. So it's great if you have lined paper. If you have lined paper, any sort of lined paper in a notebook, use lined paper. If you don't, it's okay. Maybe you can print some, or just do unlined paper. But lined paper works really well for math because it helps us keep everything lined up. All right, so I'm going to write an example just using my pen. And so here's my example number 1. And I'm going to write it horizontally, which means going across first, because you might see problems, and you often will see fraction problems written horizontally, but then we're going to work them out vertically. And there's a reason that we're working them out vertically. So just kind of, for now, go with it, understanding that there's a reason that we're doing an extra step. Okay, so let's just suppose I have this fraction 2/7, which means 2 out of 7. So maybe I have this pizza and it's divided into 7 pieces, and I have 2 out of 7. Maybe that's a cheese pizza. Okay. Then I got another pizza, maybe it's pepperoni, and I have 3 out of 7 slices left of that pizza. So we want to add these two, and we want to know how many pieces of pizza we have left total. Okay, so this is written horizontally, means it's going across from left to right. We want to write it vertically, meaning up and down, top to bottom. When we get into fractions with unlike denominators, so notice these have like denominators. I have a 7 in this denominator, 7 in this denominator. They are alike. When we get to unlike denominators, you'll understand, or it'll make more sense why I'm asking you to write it vertically. All right, so I'm going to write my first fraction, 2 sevenths. And now I'm going to write these going up and down, plus 3/7. Okay, now, remember our rules. Let's get back to our rules. Okay. Look at rule number 2. Never add or subtract the denominator, the bottom. Never add or subtract the denominator. Only add or subtract the numerator. The denominator always stays the same. So I shall go back to my example here. Okay. So remember our rule. We only add or subtract the numerator. So I have a 2 in this numerator and a 3. So I'm going to add those. 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. And then my denominator always stays the same. So 5/7. I don't add my 7s. I don't add 7 plus 7. 5/7 is my total. Okay, so let's try another one. In a minute, I will use some pictures or kind of visual to show you why we never add the bottom. Using some pictures, it might make a little more sense. All right, so let's erase this, and I'm going to do another example. All right, example number 2. Let's do this one in blue. Example number 2. And if you have paper, go ahead and write these down with me, and then we'll do some examples in just a minute on a worksheet, not just writing them down. Okay. All right, let's say we have 3/8. And we're going to add to that 1/8. So I have 3/8, and I'm going to add to that another 8. So again, our denominator is the same. They are like denominators. So I can add these two fractions. Remember, I'm only going to add the numerators. I'm not going to add the denominators. All right, so we're going to write this. We're going to rewrite it going vertically, up and down. So I've got 3/8. And I'm going to add to that 1/8. Okay, remember I only add the numerators, 3 plus 1, and that will give me 4. And I do not add 8 plus 8. Nope, my denominator always stays the same. 8, 8, and 8. Okay, so my answer to 3/8 plus 1 more 8 is 4/8. Okay, I'm going to draw a little picture, and maybe this will make a little more sense. So here's my pizza. Oops, slightly deformed pizza. Let me fix that. All right, and I'm going to divided into 8 sections. Okay, and I'll shade. Here, I'll use the highlighter. I'm going to shade 3 out of 8. All right, so I've shaded 3 out of 8. And then I'm going to shade another 1 out of 8. To use yellow. So I've got 1 out of 8 right here. Okay. So how much total do I have shaded? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 8 shaded. 4 out of 8. If I had added my denominators and gotten 4 out of 16, that would be a completely different fraction, completely different pizza. So we don't add the denominators, because that doesn't get us the right answer. All right, so I'm going to give you another example down here. I'm going to write it horizontally, but I want you to rewrite it vertically, get your answer, and pause the video, and then we'll come back and check it. All right, so here's an example. Let's see. 2/5 plus 2/5. Okay, so I've written it horizontally. I want you to rewrite it vertically, get your answer, and then we'll come back, pause the video, and come back and check it. So I have 2/5 plus 2/5. We have a like denominator, so we don't need to find any sort of equivalent fractions or find a like denominator. It already has a like denominator. Okay, so let's check our work. I'm going to go up a little bit so I have more space. I'm going to rewrite this as 2/5 plus 2/5. Okay, and then I'm going to add 2 plus 2 is 4. And I'm out of room. Scroll down. Well, that really didn't help, did it? Did not help. Okay. Well, my denominator, I'll just have to write it here. Let's hide that. Okay. And 4/5 is my answer. Okay, is that the answer you got? 4/5? Okay, if that's the answer, then you got the right answer. 4/5. Okay, and let's try a couple of subtraction. I'm going to clear these out. And let's try red. So let's try a subtraction. Let's say I have 7/8 minus 3/8. Okay, so the first thing I want to check when I'm adding or subtracting fractions is make sure I have a like denominator, which here I do have my like denominator. And then I'm going to set it up vertically, going up and down. So I have 7/8. And I'm going to subtract 3/8. Okay, remember we only subtract the numerator, so I'm going to have 7 minus 3. 7 minus 3 is 4. And then would I subtract 8 minus 8 and get a 0? No. Never subtract the denominators, and you never have a 0 in the denominator of a fraction. All right, so I'm just going to keep my 8. I have an 8 here, an 8 here, and I will also have an 8 here. Okay, and my final answer is 4/8. Okay, so if I wanted to show this visually, okay, I can make another pizza. See if this one comes out more round this time. Here's my pizza. I'm going to cut it into 8 pieces because that's my denominator. Okay, and then it says I have 7 out of 8. So I'll shade. Let's make it bigger. Shade 7 out of 8. Okay. I have shaded 7 out of 8, but if I'm going to take away 3 out of 8, which is going to take away everything. Okay, how many am I left with? Okay, I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 8. So I originally only had 7 out of 8. I took away 3 out of 8. And then I was left with 4 out of 8. Okay. So now I'm going to give you an example of a subtraction, and I want you to try it on your own. Orange. Let's see. I'll do 6 tenths minus 2 tenths. Okay, 6 tenths minus 2 tenths, and I want you to try that over here. All right, let's see. Go ahead and pause the video, get your answer, and then come back and check it. All right, I'm going to rewrite this vertically. 6 tenths minus 2/10. Okay, and remember I'm only going to subtract my numerator, so I have 6 minus 2 . Okay, so 6 minus 2 is 4. And then would I do 10 minus 10 and put a 0 in my denominator? No. We never subtract the denominators, and we never have a 0 in the denominator. So I'm just going to have a 10 here, a 10 here, and a 10 here. And so 4/10 is my answer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this video on Seesaw, and then I'm going to assign a worksheet that gives you some extra practice. And then if you still need more, and you can choose, you can do the worksheet or you can do IXL, but one or the other to get more practice, or you can do both if you really want both. So thanks, guys, and I will see you tomorrow for our Zoom chat at 10 o'clock. Okay, have a great day. Bye.